Hi everyone, I'm Carol Keller from Illinois in the US, and I'm coming to you today with my monthly paper pumpkin alternatives for the January kit, which is called Kisses and Hugs. I hope you like them. I'm going to turn my camera around right away so that we can get started with the projects. Here's just a quick peek at this month's kit. As always, it comes with instructions, and so the first thing I always do, which I've already done, is double check that on the back I have all the components that are listed. And I also always look at the alternatives, and this one actually has sparked an idea for one of the 3 cards that I'm going to be making today. It's definitely a take on this one. It's very similar but not identical. And usually there's a sneak peek of the next kit, which there is in this one as well. So it looks like it is a safari themed kit. And so if you scan the QR code, and actually this one has, it says it has a paper pumpkin playlist. It's got a curated playlist of tunes that reflect the theme of this kit. And again, I do believe it's safari themed. And that's, oh, and this on the other side is for this month's kit. There is an add-on. The kit makes 10 cards, but if you want some coordinating boxes, mini treat boxes, you can scan the code to find out how to get yours, or go onto the Stampin' Up! Website, or talk to your demonstrator and place your order for that too. But today we're just working with the components of the kit. As always, there's a stamp set, and I've already got some mounted, so they're not all on here. And the color that comes with it is gray granite. But I will leave you to discover what's in your own kit, because we're going to start right away with the alternatives. So I'm just going to move this out of the way, and I will show you the cards that I came up with. This is the first one, and again, it's a take on the card that was on the insert that comes with the kit. So it's very similar. Let me pull that back in so that you can see. I did the gradients of color. I think here they used Highland Heather, or maybe even Gorgeous Grape and Fresh Freesia. I've used Highland Heather and Blushing Bride on mine. But the same idea with the hearts, and I just moved my label, and I'm not sure what ribbon they use. Is kind of hard to tell, but I used Flirty Flamingo, which matches very well. And the base is one of the envelopes, so I will show you that in a minute, but that is card number 1. And then I also did a card that I was thinking to make it a little more masculine. That was my idea for this one. So that is my second alternative, and then this is my third. Again, using some different components of the kit from both of them. So let's get started with the first one. And I will bring that back in and leave it here so that you can see it. All right, and we are starting with a very vanilla card base, which I have already scored and cut in half. And I'm going to bring in my bone folder just to make sure it lies nice and flat. And I'm using the envelope. So this beautiful Flirty Flamingo envelope, here's the inside, and that's what we're using for the project. So all I did was just kind of carefully tear it apart to get it open. And here's where you have to be careful, is this way. In fact, I think I'm going to get my paper snips and give it a little snip here. Even though we're going to cut it down, that way you know it's going to be big enough. And in the alternative that's in the kit, that's pictured there, they actually cut it down to make it a smaller than card front size, but I decided to make mine the size of the card front. And so you just have to start off by taking off the excess pieces and saving those for potential use on another project. So I'm just cutting off the excess on the score lines. And now I'm going to cut it again to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches, which is the size of the card front. So I think I'm going to cut a little bit off of each end just because it needs a little bit of cleaning up. So 5.5. This looks pretty close, which is good. Just cleans it up that little bit. And on this side, 4.25 is about like that. And I have also cut a piece that is 3 3/4 inches by 2.5, which is going to go on top, so we'll leave that aside as well. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to color this. So I have a scrap that we're going to color on using the blending brushes. And I have a couple more scraps that I'm using to, so we can narrow down the field where we are coloring. For my blending brushes, I have one dedicated to each color. So this one is for purples, I have one for pinks, one for blues, one for yellows, etc. And I have found that that works really well. So for this one, I'm going to bring in Highland Heather. And all I did, I'm going to use the same edge, was take one of these scrap pieces of paper. Oh, and I used my grid. Let's see. I think I did it this way, and it's not gonna. All right, I'm gonna show you my messy side. I wasn't gonna do that, but it's easier because I did use the grid that came here on the paper. So I did it this way and laid it down because I know that this is 4 1/4 inches. So I decided to do 1.5 inches with the Highland Heather, 1.5 inches with Blushing Bride, and then 1.25 inches, leave it the same. So they're not exactly equal, but that was pretty close. So I'm just going to lay it here and show you. I know I'm going to the edge right there, so that doesn't need to be covered. But then at 1.5 inches, and I'm going to turn it this way so I'm using that purple end. Whoops, 1.5 inches. And you can tape it down. I didn't do that. I just kind of made sure it looked straight, which I think this one does. And then just use my blending brush to add some color and just holding it down with my fingers. I always start off of the paper, although sometimes, like with the lighter colors, you almost can start right there, especially depending on how dark you would like it, because the more color you add and the more times you do it, obviously the darker it is. So I'm just going to go all the way across, adding color until it gets to the desired shade. And do make sure you go all the way to every edge. The edges here, whoops, and the ones here, as well as the middle. All right, so there's our first layer with Highland Heather. And next I'm bringing in Blushing Bride. So now we've got a shift. If we keep this lined up at the 1.5 inch mark and we mark this one, and I'm going to turn it around. I just want to make sure that there's no way those colors are going to mix and bleed. So I'm going to put it at the 3-inch mark. Again, making sure that it's pretty straight. Say about like that, actually. And now we've got to put one at both ends to do that middle section. It's the same process, but now with pink. All right, and there's our next layer. So our coloring with the blending brushes is done. All right, so there it is. There we have our layers of color with the blending brushes. So that part is done. And now I'm going to just use my multi-purpose liquid glue and attach this to the card front. And for the next part, we're going to stamp the hearts that come with the kit in Blushing Bride on the actual front, and then also in Highland Heather on Highland Heather cardstock, and then we're going to cut those out. So we'll start with the Blushing Bride, and all I did was measure, stamp on a scrap paper, and then measure the size to know what size this needed to be so that they would fit like that. And we'll just leave spaces where the Highland Heather ones will go. Let's see here. You know what, I'm going to flip that over. It's hard doing this on camera because I need my head over it. So I'm going to move it down a little lower so I can see it better. And we're going to start over again. See if that works better. So I want them nice and even. That's better. Leave space for the Highland Heather. All right, so now we've got our base, and like I said, we're going to clean the stamp and then stamp in Highland Heather. And I'm literally using scraps for this. Let me just make sure, as long as I know that it's going to fit, that's what we're going to use. And we'll stamp three more. And then we'll cut those out. I will cut those out and be right back. All right, and next we are going to take some Flirty Flamingo ribbon, it's beautiful metallic ribbon, and put it here with some glue dots. And then we will attach it to the card front with some Stampin' Seal. And center it on the card front. Next, I'm going to grab some dimensionals, and there are some that come with the kit, and apply these to the card. And then I'm going to bring the ribbon back in and just tie a little knot around the piece that we already laid. And then last but not least, I've got a scrap of Very Vanilla. That's a 1/2 inch wide that I'm using for the sentiment that also comes with the kit. First the words love you, and we will do those again in Blushing Bride. And just don't do it right at the edge, so you leave room to cut a little tail in there. And then we'll bring in the Highland Heather and the stamp with the word more. You know what, I think I'm going to redo it on the other side. It's just a little bit off. Again, it's hard to stamp when you're not directly overhead. Let's try that again. We'll do the more first, because it really doesn't matter which one is first. And bring the Blushing Bride back in. Oh yeah, that looks better. And all I did for the ends was cut each side with my paper snips, and then cut a line in the center, and then actually a little bit over. And then you cut to from each end to the center, from each corner to the center, I should say. And then we're going to cut this down and do the same thing on the other side. Taking my Stampin' Seal once again. And placing that along the bottom, overlapping it a little bit. And then we are gonna stamp the inside. I did Happy Valentine's Day, and I did do the hearts again. And for this, I used the Sweet Conversations stamp set, which is a coordinating stamp set that's in the new January to June mini catalog. Lots of cute hearts and sentiments. So I used the Happy Valentine's Day, like I said, which I have here, and then we'll bring in Highland Heather one more time. And we'll do a heart. So I'm going to estimate where I know the first one's going to go and do one next to it. Clean the stamp. And bring in Blushing Bride one more time for the other two. Since they are stamps that have colors throughout, you really want to press it so that it transfers all of it to the card. And then for the envelope, I'm taking one from the kit so that, of course, it coordinates. And I'm going to do the same thing with the hearts on the front. And last but not least, our bling. We'll move that to the side. We've got some sequins that come with the kit, some adhesive-backed sequins. And they're nice and big. I'm just going to move them with my finger. I put a couple down here. You can also use your take your pick tool. The putty end is really great for that. And then one over here. And our first card is complete. Here is the second card. And I'm starting off this time with a basic white card base, since that is the coordinating color in the die cuts that I'll be using from the kit. And I just started off by cutting a piece of Pacific Point that's the same size as the card front, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And we'll put that on again with some multi-purpose liquid glue. For the next part, I cut a strip of gold from the gold and rose gold specialty papers, which I'm going to show you quickly. They're absolutely stunning. And the rose gold actually would go with the colors like from the third card or even the first card. I think that would pair nicely with the Blushing Bride. So I may even try to add it to the next card. We will see. But for this one, I'm using the gold, and it's cut at 1/4 inch by 5 1/2. I'm going to grab my liquid glue again to adhere it to the card. I'm just kind of moving it in from the edge a little bit and making sure that it's straight. And then for the next part, there are 5 Vellum Hearts in the kit, so I've used one of those. And then there are several sheets of these hearts that have 4 to a sheet. So we're using those. And we're going to do some embossing, both on the outside and on the inside. I have, for the vellum, a stamp that, 3 stamps from the kit, Love You, More, and a little heart with an arrow. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but I'm going to stamp those on one of the, or on the vellum, I should say. And then there is a little heart and the XO, also from the kit. And then on the inside, I embossed as well the Happy Valentine's Day, that same sentiment from the Sweet Conversations kit. And then Happy to Have You in My Life, that's also from that kit. And I think I'm actually going to add that open heart in the corner. So I will show you the process with the vellum to start with, and I'll do the rest off camera. So for this we need our Versamark pad. And I'm going to get some good ink on there. And we'll stamp it in the center. All right, and I just smeared that. That's what I was afraid of. So we will try it on the other side. We'll ink it again. Much better. So I don't know if you can see it on camera, but I can see where the Versamark has been stamped, or the stamp has been stamped in Versamark on the vellum. And then we're going to bring in some embossing powder. So I've got some gold embossing powder, and my container broke, so I've got it in a little bag. Comes in a nice little plastic container from Stampin' Up. And I'm going to just put it on all over where I stamped with the Versamark. And then we're going to just pour it right back in. And you will see that there are some little stray bits around the edges, but if you just flick with your finger, they come right off. And I'm going to add a little bit more. It looks like that U on the word U needs a little bit more. So you want to make sure you have good coverage. And the same thing, pour it back in, give it a little flick, and then I'm going to bring in my heat tool, and we're simply going to just heat it until the embossing powder melts. Just takes a second or two. And as quickly as that, we have the first one embossed. So it is that simple. I'm going to do the rest and then I will be back. All right, and now we're just going to put it all together. And I did want to say too, you do have to be careful because the vellum is slippery, and that's why my first inking was smeared, because it moved a little bit. So just be aware of that with the vellum, but the cardstock is easier. It doesn't move around as much. And I realized that I did tuck this one actually underneath there, and I forgot that. So this time it's just going to go on top. And because adhesive shows through the vellum, all I did was put some adhesive on the back of where I know there's going to be a heart. So, you know, overlapping it. So I'm just going to put a little bit of my Stampin' Seal to hold it in place. And I know the placement of the other hearts will cover it up so you can see through it. So I'm going to strategically place that one so that it covers it. And that was also why I put it underneath the strip. So I may even add a second one, since I did it in the wrong order. Because I don't think I'll be able to take it off because it's very, very dry. So I think I may add a second one. I've got one handy. I think I'm going to try that and just layer them, because I do like the idea of it being underneath the gold strip, that vellum heart. So let's see if we can do that, because it does also serve then to hold the vellum down. So we will give that a try. Just put it right over the first one. Got a little bit of glue overload, but it will dry clear, so I'm really not that concerned about it. And yes, once that dries, it won't show, but that is our second card all done. And here's the last card. And we are starting actually with another vanilla, very vanilla card base. And our first layer is Blushing Bride, the same size as the card front, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And so on this one, I have stamped, I'm going to bring in my scrap again, and I've used the heart, the solid heart from the kit, and the little arrow stamp. And we're going to do a little bit of masking. So I already stamped and cut out a heart from a piece of Post-it note, from the sticky end of a Post-it note. We're going to use that as our mask. And I'm going to randomly stamp some hearts in Flirty Flamingo, and we'll add arrows to a few of them. So I'll show you how we do that. But first we'll do some stamping just of the hearts. Make sure we've got good coverage. Try that again. Again, you got to press it so you get good coverage, but luckily with photopolymer, since I can see where I'm stamping, it's easy to go over it. And you could stamp over the whole thing, but I know it's going to be covered, so I'm less concerned about that. And now I'm going to get my gray granite, and that's again the ink spot that's included in the kit. And so for where I want to put the arrows, I'm just going to lay my mask over. And you will see my sticky note is not very sticky, but it doesn't matter because it just has to lay there to cover where I've already stamped. And we stamp in the gray granite, and you see it pops off, but that's all right. And it creates that look of the arrow going through the heart. And actually, I stamped this in Flirty Flamingo, but I think we're going to try it in the gray granite. It may provide a little more contrast so you can see it a little bit better. So I'm going to bring in, this is a heart die cut from the kit. And I have that same Love You More from the last card. And I did want to say too, the little X and the O, let me stamp this first, but the little X and the O, oh yeah, I like that better, that I used for the last card actually came from the Sweet Conversations kit. There is an X and an O in the paper pumpkin kit, but they're larger, and I wanted to use the smaller ones, but either one of them would work. All right, so we've got that done. And on the inside, I stamped again Happy Valentine's Day and the heart with the arrow. So we're going to do that again. I'll leave that gray handy and bring back that Flirty Flamingo. Bring in the inside. And we'll start with the Happy Valentine's Day. And then a heart at the bottom. And so that's the inside of the card. And then we have one final thing, which is to take another component from the kit. And this actually comes from the card. This is the 3 panels card that you can make if you make the kit the way it calls for. And I'm just going to cut off one section with my paper snips. You could use your trimmer if you wanted to, but it's pretty quick and easy. And of course you can see that that edge gets cut off, but it doesn't matter because the heart is larger than the card front, so we're going to be trimming it off anyway. But before we do that, before we adhere it to the card, I'm going to bring in my scrap one more time. And I colored this just lightly with the Flirty Flamingo and my blending brush. So I've got my blending brush, and again, I'm just lightly, I wanted just a little bit of subtle color. And as I said when I made the last card, I thought about adding that rose gold metallic paper, but then I decided not to because this is gold on here and I didn't want them to fight with each other, but you certainly could use it. And so this time I am starting on the paper rather than on the die cut because I don't want it too heavy. Again, looking for that variation of color. I think that's pretty good. And now all we have to do is put it together. So we're going to start with this piece and our multi-purpose liquid glue. And I'm going to take my Stampin' Seal for the next layer. And then center that. So you see there isn't too much that needs to be cut off, but there is a little bit. I'm going to take my snips. And I'm going to pop this up with dimensionals, which it looks like I have mostly ends left, so I'll use those. And then center it on the card. Oh yeah, I do like it better with the gray. Oh, that's right, and I actually wanted to, I was thinking for this one, there is an arrow in the kit. Let me grab that, here it is. And I was thinking that I would put it behind like that. So actually I would have done it before I put the, let's see if I can sneak it underneath the dimensionals. I think I'm not going to, it sticks pretty quickly. So I am just going to do this. So it gives that same feel as the hearts on the outside. I think that adds just that little bit more. If you wanted to, you could actually even cut it apart. Let's see, can I get it off? Yes, let's try that. I'm gonna cut it apart and make it a little longer so it sticks out a little more. I think that will be even better. Yes. Just have to make sure we line it up. So yeah, on this one, I wanted to catch both of those pieces of dimensional. And move it just a little bit. Yeah, I think I'm going to move it over a little more. So you just want to make sure it's stuck to the dimensional. Yes. And so we'll adjust this one accordingly so that it's straight, hopefully. Now we will adhere it to the card. Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. And I think I'm even going to add it to this one. All right, last but not least, we just need our bling. Same as before, just putting a few. Add a little sparkle. Oh, I like that a lot. All right, and that is our third card. So I'll bring in the other two. This was card number 1 and card number 2 and card number 3. And again, you know, on the envelope, I would just use a white envelope and I would stamp, and I probably wouldn't emboss, but you could emboss or stamp the XO or the heart on the front corner of the envelope, like here. And on this one, I would do the heart with the arrow through it on the envelope as well. So I hope you like that. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you watching my paper pumpkin alternatives every month, and I hope you like these. Remember that I have other cards, scrapbook pages, home decor ideas, tips, techniques, and all sorts of other wonderful things on my YouTube channel. So please hang out and see what else you find that you may be interested in. And I would appreciate some love in the comments as well. And I hope that you join me again next month. If you don't have a demonstrator, I would be happy to be yours. And I will see you again soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.